This links nicely, I think, to our next story, which is an absolute cracker. So we've gone from one unique football club owner, and now we're going to go to another. That is Gigi Fresco of Virtus Verona, Paul. What unusual step has he taken very recently?
Well, he sacked himself after 44 years on the bench at Serie C club Virtus Verona. He pulled the plug on his own tenure as coach. And the reason he's able to do this is because he was appointed chairman back in 1982 and appointed himself then as head coach.
Right. So not really on merit then. Does that mean that he would have probably been sacked way earlier had he not also been the chairman?
Well, no, because actually he appointed himself back in the day when they were a tiny little village club and did this incredible job with them. He took them up and up and up through all the regional leagues and into semi-professional football in Italy. He's taken them almost to the edge of Serie B, almost into the second tier. So actually he did this remarkable job. I saw an amazing statement from a fan club on Facebook of Virtus Verona, kind of giving an homage to him after he left the bench, saying he's a cross between Jesus Christ and Fidel Castro, I think it said.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not.
No, maybe he needs a painting with him as Jesus in it. But but yeah, he basically, earlier in the season, it wasn't going very well. They've had a tough season. And he said, I'm going to sack myself at this rate. And I didn't know if it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing, but no, he decided it's time for someone new to come in. He's turned to his assistant, who, you know, is already there on the bench with him, Tommaso Chiecchi, and has said, look, you take charge, but I'll be on the bench as your assistant.
I think this was another example of the remarkable hit rate of the sweeper curse, because I think it was literally a week before this decision was made. We posted on social media about him being the longest serving coach in football at this moment in time. Then within 7 days, he sacked himself.
Yeah, and I think also it's a measure of just how broad our research has to be, right? Because we are always looking for these kind of stories. I've had basically almost like a Google note to myself to like look out for Gigi Fresco, like keep an eye on him, because I've been like, is he going to go this season? Mm-hmm. And so I've been checking up on him weekly. And that moment where I saw he had sacked himself, I was like, oh, it's happened, Lee.
Yeah, but he's apparently staying at the club, right? He's not let go completely.
No, he'll still be very much present. He'll still be the chairman. So, you know, he has been there since 1969, if you include his playing days. So, no, he is like as much a part of the club. He basically is the club at this point. But it's a very special club. And what they've created there, I think, is something really admirable.
Yeah, I didn't know about it. So please do tell me about sort of the background of Virtus Verona.
So obviously Verona is known for primarily Hellas Verona. There was Chievo Verona, who enjoyed this incredible Cinderella story where they went from being a tiny little village club to playing in Serie A and even getting into Europe. I think they had this season where they finished something like fifth. And Chievo actually taunted Hellas because Hellas said, they said, you know, Chievo will be in Serie A when donkeys fly. And so the name of the team is now the Flying Donkeys, Chievo, because it was sort of to mock Hellas for the fact that this tiny club had surpassed a much more long-standing big club. Chievo have now met with their demise. They're on the way back up with a new owner. But Virtus, their thing is that they're from Borgo Venezia, which is in east of Verona. It's a kind of working-class area. But recently it's become really at the forefront of immigration. So there's a lot of immigrants to Verona have gravitated to this area. And Verona can be a slightly forbidding place for immigrants. There's quite a strong right-wing contingent, and Hellas Verona reflects that in its fan base at times. So this club has become a really welcoming place for immigrants and refugees coming into Verona. And probably the best example of that is there's a goalkeeper, Sheikh Sibi, who is a Gambian refugee who actually crossed the Mediterranean to Lampedusa. He was then sent to the Costa Grande reception centre in Verona, and that's looked after by the company who run Virtus Verona. So he then realised it was a football club, began playing with them, and has been, you know, the goalkeeper for the club.
What a wonderful story. I honestly didn't know that. I knew about Hellas Verona and their sort of right-wing fan base. I think we talked about them in the context of you previously living in Verona during your student days. I knew about Chievo, but I did not know about Virtus, so that was very, very interesting.
Funny thing is, I supported Chievo when I was there, But I actually considered going to try and play for Virtus Verona because
Of course you did.
at that point they were so much lower, right? So it's quite funny now to think of me saying, "Oh, I could go and play for a third-tier Italian team." I wouldn't even be able to be ball boy for a third-tier Italian team. But at the time, they were a tiny club. They've done amazingly.
I have huge admiration for your self-belief.
That's a kind way of saying, "Oh my God, you're deluded."
You deluded fool. All right. Well, how does Gigi Fresco's 44-year tenure at Virtus Verona stack up against the other longest managerial reigns in football history, Paul? I think we've identified that the previous record holder was Roux, who was in charge of Auxerre for 41 years across 3 spells, but the main spell was 35 years. In that time, he took the club from the 4th tier to become champions of France and 4-time Coupe de France winners. That is quite an amazing story, isn't it? But I think the one in the list after Roux is more like the Gigi Fresco story.
Yes, so this is Jomo Sono, who is the coach of third-tier South African club Jomo Cosmos. So he's been in charge for 32 years. And again, you imagine he's got a fairly good grip on that, given that the club is named after him.
Yeah, so he is both the owner and the coach. They seem to be taking sort of an opposite path to Virtus Verona in the sense that they've been relegated twice now, I think, and yet he's still in place. So I wonder if a self-sacking is on the cards for him soon. And what about in the pre-World War II era? Because the ones we've mentioned above, they are post-World War II. There are some even longer tenures before the Second World War.
Yeah, there are. So the longest serving football manager technically of all time, I think, is Fred Everiss, for managing West Bromwich Albion for about 46 years. But this is between 1902 and 1948. And at the time, the role was quite different. Like when we talk about a football manager or a football coach now, that's not really quite what this was. His job was more like a kind of manager of the club in the sense of the admin. So picking the team actually went to the directors of the club. So whether you could actually count him on this list, I actually sort of dispute that counts, really.